Magandang umaga. Ako po si Trixie Cruz-Angeles. And if you will notice, nasa labas po ako ngayon. Actually, I'm outside of Metro Manila. And I wanted to talk about first, pero mostly this is just Q&A, but as a matter of introduction, napansin ko, I was looking at the newsreels, or do they still call them that? I was looking at yung mga clips about the ongoings in Davos, not specifically about the Philippine delegation. No? I was seeing yung mga interviews ng what we would normally call the mosquito press, yung tinatawag natin ditong mosquito press, but which are now more modernly called how do you call this, vloggers. Marami pong vloggers from different websites na nandun sa Davos ngayon. And since not all of them are at the level of getting press credentials, nakikita niya, nag-ambush interview sila. So people like Tony Blair and so on, and the other delegates were being interviewed in the streets as they would walk towards the meeting or on their way back to their hotel. So naglalakad lang sila, and they were open to being ambushed. I mean, ang galing ng mga vloggers, no? Lalapit lang talaga sila. They'll introduce themselves with so and so website. We'd like to ask this and that. And very ibang mga tanong, very brutal. Mr. Blair, what are you doing here? You're no longer prime minister, and so on. San lugar daw ako? I am outside, san ba ako? Outside Clark, no? I'm outside of Clark Development, a little past it, nasa banda bundok po. Okay. So, yun lang. And I was thinking, uh, parang very kind pa, actually, ang mga vloggers dito sa Pilipinas because we're not in their faces, no? We've seen, well, of course, Rappler is like that. But it's, kumbaga, but they're the ones outside. Once you're inside, reporter ka for mainstream media and so on, you're a lot more polite because binibigyan talaga kayo ng platform. So when you're outside, when you're not part of the mainstream media, you have to be more in the face, di ba? Hindi ka sinasagot lagi. Pero sometimes pinapansin sila. But the point here is that naririnig ng mga public figures na yon yung iniisip ng mga tao. Because once pinupuntahan na sila ng mga well, bloggers, or what we mosquito press sometimes, or what we refer to sometimes as the mosquito press, they ask questions that ordinary people are thinking, or that are discussed online, where the real, kumbaga, where a lot of the people's sentiments are can be heard. And it's good for public figures to hear this. Kailangan yung mga politiko natin, naririnig din tayo. Naririnig nila yung mga ganito. Now, there's some leaders who are closely monitoring what people say about them at nagre-react sila. And para sa akin, yan yung demokrasya. May feedback, may mga leaders, naririnig nila yung mga tao, naririnig nila yung taong bayan. So, binabago nila yung kanilang patakbo, binabago nila yung kanilang mga polisiya dahil naririnig nila yung mismong mga aapektuhan ng mga polisiya na yon. Now, lumilipas na yung mga panahon. Naaalala nyo dati, di ba, pagka may mga politicians tayo, mga kongresista and so on, meron silang gagawin, and minsan, all they have to do is ride out. Kung kunwari masama yung mga sinasabi, iintayin lang nila. Pero itutuloy pa rin nila yung mga proyekto. So now, with a lot of people blogging and a lot of the opinions being heard very loudly, then itong mga to, they can, how do you call this? They can be heard. And hindi na ganun ka di ba? Hindi na ganun ka exempt from criticism ang ating mga politicians. But like we always say, criticism, for it to be effective, must be fair. Sabi ni Ma'am Mishi, good morning. Ask ko lang po, kailan po kaya implementation ng cash benefits, 25K, mga senior age 80, po ba yan? Wala pa po ako nakikitang polisiya at kakailanganin po niyan either ng batas or ng existing policy to be issued by the implementing agency. So yung ahensya on senior citizens, sila po ang gagawa ng rules for that. Wala pa po akong nakikitang balita about that. I think right now it's still a proposal. Sabi ni Mark, Dong TV, ask anything, pwede po kita i-content sa YT ko po. It depends, sir. So if you will excerpt parts of these videos, then I can't stop you because that's fair use. But if what you say would in the anyway be defamatory, edi syempre we will have to be about that. Although in general, di naman po kung kami pikon dito sa Luminous, we have taken action with certain people who have taken down content that has been libelous and defamatory. Pero yung excerpts, pwede po yan. No problem. You don't even have to ask. Wag lang yung buo. Kasi pagka yung buong-buo na yung kinuha ninyo, na siya, violation na siya ng copyright. So, may copyright infringement na po yan. Ang ganda daw ng view, this is a development, an area that's under development. And kung napapansin nyo, naririnig nyo ba yung hangin? Ang hangin dito, no? So, hi kay Ma'am Tessie Dizon, sabi niya, ganda ng view, so fresh in air, but I played. Sabi ni Pao, is PBBM focusing too much sa big things and forgetting the macros? Or do you mean forgetting the micros? So, at natanong ni Jex kung nasan ako, I'm outside of the Clark development area. So, banda dun sa this is way out, well, not really, a few kilometers outside of Clark. I think that your question, Paul, requires an opinion, no? I think that it is the president's job to concentrate on the big things and the secretaries to work out the details of these things. And there must be continuous communication between the president at yung cabinet secretaries niya or yung mga heads of agencies para ma-work out yung details para makukuha yung pinupuntirya ng presidente. Yung presidente po talaga ang nagsiset ng vision para sa bansa. Tapos, it is up to his cabinet to work out how we're going to get there. So, kunwari, dun sa State of the Nation ng presidente, so umpisa pa lang, noong June of 2022, na sinet na niya yung vision niya. So he talked about things like opening up the economy, continuity, like yung build, itutuloy. Focus on infrastructure. He talked about communications, the internet, transportation, and so on. So itong mga to, ito yung part ng widespread vision ng encompassing vision ng presidente. After a year, dito sa pagdating uli ng June, dyan tayo maniningil. Titignan natin, sir, nasa na po ba tayo? So, talagang malawak. When the president talks about the economy, how can you open up the economy if people are not interested? So, he's trying to get people interested. Yung mga pinupuntahan niya abroad, he takes the opportunity to talk to people so that they will consider the Philippines as an investment destination. Yun po yung very, very specific point ng presidente when he goes on these trips. It is up to us to determine whether or not itong mga ganitong trips ni presidente do have, kung they achieve their purpose, or is it looking optimistic and so on? Mararamdaman ba natin to kaagad? Or will the effects of these trips be felt only 3 to 5 years afterwards? So we need to be able to set ano ba yung standards natin to say that these trips are, that the money the taxpayers have spent on this are well spent, kung tama or efficient yung pagkagamit ng public funds para dito. So, but if you're saying focusing too much, I'm assuming that beyond what the president is supposed to focus on for the big things, yun lang ang tinitignan and he's avoiding the details. I think that that's a fair comment, considering na yun nga, yung things like yung presyo ng pagkain, it has been several months since the criticism first came up 'Di ba? Ilang buwan na natin pinag-uusapan, hindi lang po sibuyas ha, pero in general yung yung cost ng pagkain, lalong-lalo na yung mga issues na hindi masyadong napapag-usapan katulad ng baboy. Ah, Sinabi na last year na kaya tayo mag-importation ay dahil sa ASF. So, after so many months na-assess natin, hindi naman po lahat ng probinsya may ASF, pero ang parang in fact, yung presyo ng pork, hindi natin, ito so different in different areas. So even if you average it out, parang hindi justified yung pagbaba ng taripa at pag-increase ng quota ng mga pagpupasok ng pork. And now the president has extended itong dapat 1 year lang yung si President Duterte kasi nga to address the rising costs of food habang nagpa-pandemya pa. So, ang ginawa ng Presidente Marcos ay in-extend niya yung period for low tariff rates and increased quota sa importation ng pork. Ito ba ay nakakatulong sa pagbaba ng presyo ng pagkain in general, at least yung presyo ng baboy? And hindi pa po nagagawa ng assessment yon. So your comment na parang masyado siyang nasa macros, naiintindihan ko po yan and hindi naman po unfounded yan. It is a fair comment and a fair observation. So para sa akin, let's see kung ano yung magiging epekto ng kanyang mga policies na ito. Like dito sa extension ng pagbaba ng taripa sa pork, bumababa yung presyo o tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung pagtaas. Ang sabi ng mga sources doon sa Karambola, hindi bumababa. In other words, yung mayaman, yung middleman, yung mga traders. But let's see, give it a few more months, if the importation policy does help the consumers. So this is one of those things that are details, di ba? That in fact it should be coming from the DTI and it should be coming from the senior undersecretary sa DA to tell us what the prices are. Kumbaga nagre-respond ba yung market and so on. So for us to be able to discuss that, we need to get the data. Sabi ni BJ, okay lang yan mag-focus si PBBM sa mga investors, may mga secretary naman siya nagagawa ng trabaho na yan. No, that's not what we're saying. The secretaries should already, by this time, be aware of what the president wants. Ano ba yung mga objectives ng presidente at meron silang roadmap at meron tayong standards. Yun ang hindi nila nako-communicate sa atin. Ano ba yung plano dito? And within that plan, nasaan na tayo? So kung kunwari, for the year 2023, do we increase importations to provide lower priced food for the people? And what naman on the end of the production side, ano naman ang ginagawa natin para mabalanse yung mga para maprotektahan din natin yung local industry, yung mga farmers natin na napapababa ba natin yung mga costs of production, nagiging efficient ba sila, nako-connect ba natin ang mga farmers natin to a bigger market, na nabubuwag ba natin yung mga cartels and so on. So ang kulang po sa communications ng ibang mga cabinet natin ay yung pagbibigay ng roadmap at nasa na tayo doon at anong standards ang gagamitin natin para masabi na ito po ba ay successful o hindi. Sabi ni Eric, pwede po ba ituloy ang joint exploration with China kahit may decision ang Supreme Court na bawal ito? May paraan ba para matuloy? Hindi ko po nabasa yung Supreme Court decision. I-check ko po kung ano yung dahilan kung bakit binabawal siya ng Supreme Court. Hindi po kasi, I need to get to the reasoning on that. I'll get back to you on that one. Araling ko muna. Sabi ni BJ, correct, ibang products ng micro pang export. Ayun. Sabi ni BJ Cans, walang investors, walang sponsor ang micro. Well, investors are local or international. So it really depends kung ano yung pina-prioritize natin dito. Kung titignan natin ang existing government programs natin, makikita po natin na meron po tayong programa din. Ayon dun kasi kay DTI Secretary, isa dun sa mga main programs ng DTI is yung micro, small, and medium scale enterprises at may mga available loans. Hindi natin nakikita din asan ito sa roadmap niya. Nasaan yung ano, again, ano yung standards? Ilan na po ba ang naka-avail ng mga loans na ito? Are these businesses thriving and so on? How are they dealing with the current market situation? So, isa pa yun, hindi rin po natin naririnig si DTI, nasa na ba yung roadmap natin for, for trade during this year? Kasi yan po yung major concern ng publiko sa ngayon, base nga dito sa nakikita natin online, sa discussions online. So, and I agree with you, BJ. Ang tingin ko on this end, it is now, these details should have been worked out by the DTI and communicated to the public. Kaya hindi naiintindihan minsan, nagkakaroon ng malaking frustration kasi nga hindi na meet yung expectations natin. Nararamdaman natin yung matataas na presyo but we don't know why. And we don't know where we are with regards to where is this country going and how is it moving forward pagdating dito sa trade. Sabi, ay, good morning kay Jade Kevin Santos. Hi kay Eric Compan. Sabi niya, pwede ba ituloy? Yung joint exploration pala to. Sige, I'll get back to you on that. Pero kailangan paalala niyo. So, siguro yun ang kulang to address the frustrations of some people with regard to certain programs at saka yung with regard to, how expensive food is becoming. Ang nangyayari dito is nag-experience tayo um, ng inflation, and yung inflation are driven by two factors. Locally, they're driven by the high food prices, and of course, the other factor is yung fuel prices because of the war. Sabi ni Pao, what do you think kung bakit binabalik ang ibang cabset ni PRRD sa admin ni PBBM? Is there any significance or meaning? Well, it will depend kasi nga we have to separate fact from rumor. At first, Sec Charlie was designated and sworn in as Secretary of National Defense. Tapos merong lumalabas rumors abound regarding the temporary nature or senior undersecretary lang daw siya. Well, we can put to rest that rumor. Sec Charlie was sworn in as secretary kasi yun po yung in-announce ng communications office. So, mahirap mag-derive ng meaning from any of these things right now. Masyadong influx. However, this is what I would like to say. Yung pagka-appoint kasi kay Sec Charlie, led to a calming down of sentiments within the military. How long they will become will depend on the other activities or the other things that the president has taken care of. Halimbawa, na lumabas na daw yung promotions ng mga opisina sa Malacanang, allegedly. Okay? Allegedly. And because na lumabas na yung mga promotions na ito, this also addresses some of the unrest. Allegedly. The alleged unrest. Pero actually, hindi ko nasasabihin alleged unrest kasi inamin na ni Sec Charlie yan sa Senate hearing. So, wala nang magsasabi na marites lang daw yung military unrest. So, it's already there in the Senate record. So, okay. What can we say about that na form? Ang tingin ko, I don't know if it would be significant in terms of whether or not this is part of continuity or this is giving in to certain political interests. I have no evidence to indicate that. Dion? Hi kay Kurt. Miss na kita. Sabi ni Sir Flavie, magandang umaga, ganda ng lugar niya dyan. Sabi ni Albert, tingin nyo, panahon na po bang mag-appoint si PBBM ng full-time DA Secretary para makapag-focus sa mga problema sa department? Well, there are two views on that one. Number one is yes, because the president has to take care of other departments as well as the issues about food. And we need somebody to make a specific roadmap and help out dun sa pagko-communicate nito. However, there is another faction that says, wait, the president still has to be there because of the interoperability of because the DA must work with other agencies. And being president, he can facilitate that interaction. At saka mabilis pwede yung mga responses. Halimbawa, yun na nga, mabilis yung response with regard to sa pag-extend ng pagbaba ng taripa at pag-expand ng mga quotas dun sa pork. And it can apply to other importation or to importation of other agricultural products. So yung mabilis na magiging response at action, it shows that the president is giving this priority and he himself can respond very quickly kung siya po yung secretary. Kung iba po yung secretary, it adds another layer bago siya makapag-action. And he thinks that the agricultural sector is something that will require his immediate action. Now, as to whether or not that is working, that is for the public to decide. Sabi ni Net, tips po sa pagpasok ng law school. Thanks. By the way, gumaganda po kayo. Hindi na kailangan po ng mga ganon para sagutin ko yung tanong. Tips sa pagpasok ng law school. Number one tip they told us when we were in freshman orientation class sa UP is, if you don't love reading, you will not survive law school. So dapat sanay kayong nagbabasa because you will be reading for about 80% of your time. And there's a lot of reading to be done. You should know how to use a dictionary. So yung mga ganyan, know how to study your vocabulary and so on. Find out if your law school teaches primarily in English because most law schools do. About 90% of law schools, your professor will be speaking to you in straight English because most of the decisions, something like 98% of the decisions, no more, 99% of the decisions are written in English. There is a very, very microscopic but still existent percentage of cases that are written in Spanish. Merong isang in Pilipinas? Well, about 5 cases. So also possibly the same amount. If I remember only about 3 cases in Spanish. So, but you will be reading and you will be reading a lot. Entrance exams will determine your capability to pick up context clues, to pick up vocabulary, and so on. So you have to be good in English, or at least competent in English, competent in your vocabulary building, and competent in both reading and writing and speaking in English. If you're going to UP, merong interview. I don't know what percentage, what weight the interview is, but that interview will be conducted in English, and they will see how well you do because recitation is another part of law school. Most law schools use the Socratic method. So look up the Socratic method. That's through questions and through questioning you, the professor will draw out the lesson and the point from you through the series of questions and answers. So you must be prepared to be able to answer. Tip in reciting in law school, which is something that freshmen learn the hard way, is to understand, listen to the question, understand what is being asked. So when the professor asks a yes or no question, answer only yes or no, but be prepared to substantiate your answer. If the professor asks why, then the answer will always be because this or that. Listen to the question. If the professor says who, don't tell him why. Sabi ni Michael, naloka ako nang pinabasa kami ng civil cases in Spanish. I remember, tinitiga lang namin yung case. Namutla kaming lahat nung nagtawag si Prof na magre-recite. Akala ko mawawala, kaluluwa ako ng 5 seconds. It is only in those 3 cases that I was able to put linguistics to good use. Kasi 21 units ako sa Spanish. Sabi ni Boljak, is it true that lawyers should be partial or biased towards their clients for their clients' favor? It is true that a lawyer is hired to advocate for their client. But in order to be a good advocate, you must be willing to see what the other side is going to say and be able to meet their arguments. So, yun po yun. Biased or partial? No, you are on the side of your client. Bias or partiality has nothing to do with it. But if you're biased, kasi you will not see the arguments of the other side or be dismissive of them. You still have to be objective in uh, in studying your case, studying and and understanding that you can't kumbaga, if you're so much on the side of your client that you don't see the other side, then you're going to fail because you will not be able to anticipate the actions of your opponent. And yes, the a hearing is advocacy, which means it's one side versus the other. And somewhere in between of all, in the middle of all that, will be the truth, and the judge will find that out. Okay. Uh, Kailan kaya makakalaya si Delima, attorney? Well, we don't know, and we don't know kung makakalaya siya. So, that's a loaded question. Kailan makakalaya? You're presuming na makakalaya siya. I'm not presuming that. New subscriber si Ma'am Nena watching from Nevada. Hi, Ma'am. Thank you for subscribing. Okay. Good morning. Dito daw to the viewers, sabi ni Baba. Madam Flix, kanino po bang kasalanan ang pagpapabaya sa ari kay PBBM o kay DAR? Agree. Kanino pa maglaganap ang importation at smuggling kay ano ba yun? Ano ba ang naitulong ni Dar sa mga magsasaka? Okay, for all of us, we understand na ang failing talaga ni Sec Dar was the focus on importation. And a lot of that focus was because we were in a pandemic, and the concern was primarily on the consumers and meeting the possibility of inflation and so on, yung pagtataas masyado ng presyo ng bilihin. So he focused on the consumers issues rather than that of the producers. So at least yun yung nagiging evaluation natin sa kanya. However, I would like to point out that the president has also extended. So lalo-lalo na dito sa importations, a lot of the policies are still being extended without us seeing what the actions are taken on the production side as well. So I don't really like to put any blame on any side because this problem did not start with the Duterte administration. It started a long time ago when we stopped paying so much attention to the traders and the ability to manipulate the prices, which means that the market is very susceptible to price manipulation. Kasi cartelized iilan lang yung mga traders so they're capable of doing that. The attention should be focused on that. Unfortunately, a lot of these traders are also campaign contributors. So I don't think it is really fair to say, is it the Duterte or the Marcos administration responsible for this mess? I think the mess had been a long time in coming. Napuputukan lang tayo because we went through a pandemic, and now we're trying economy, and the traders and so many interest groups have gotten very strong. Ayan, sabi ni Pao, I hope PBBM is keeping his eyes on BRICS at sa nangyayari Middle East and China kasi baka masyado tayong kumakapit sa West and mahirapan tayo to balance when the day comes na number one na ang China. Well, I agree, and I think that is a fair observation. Let's see, the president still balances things out. In the same way that he had gone to the US, he had also gone to China. And we see from his remarks that we are not going to be taking any sides in in conflicts. No, we're going to balance our national interests as against the interests of other countries who want us to side with one or the other. So you're right, but I think the president is aware of that. Sabi ni Boljak, I see. Thank you because I was wondering where that attorney Kausing is coming from, a vlogger and a spokesperson of the Lapids. Attorney Berteleni Kausing, si Sir Toto, is actually a friend. I don't always agree with his opinions, but I like the idea that he's out there and giving opinions to balance all of us out. So you see, if you didn't bring that up, then we wouldn't have been discussing this. So I always give kudos parate kay Attorney Kausing. He may have different opinions, but we like him. He's a good guy. Kasi you see, this is what we advocate also, is that we can all have different opinions. We can also agree not to agree. Kumbaga. Pero we can still all remain friends. Hindi kailangan na magpapatayan tayo because we have differences of opinions. Sabi ni Dog Youth, si Dar nag-i-import dahil sa pandemic, si Marcos nag-i-import kahit harvest season. Uh, I think it happened then kasi nga nag-enforce tayo ng anti-smuggling where normally there would still be an influx of agricultural products na smuggle in. So, uh, na-offset yung mga traders. Kaya nga yung ibang mga traders, sila na din po yung nagsismuggle, sila na din po ang nag-i-import para kontrolado yung market. So that's partly what happened. We weren't prepared. Kumbaga, so kailangan ngayon mag-import para bumaba yung presyo. Sabi ni Marcos, loyalist, wala na pong epekto ang COVID sa mga probinsya at yung COVID naman po ang pinipeko ni Duque. Halos wala nga pong nag-face mask nung panahon ng COVID sa Polillo. Yes, sir, but that would be assuming that the conditions in Polillo are the same everywhere else. We cannot ignore na marami pong namatay. So, and at the time, assume natin for the moment, we'll try to see it your side, that that COVID was only in particular areas or might not have really existed at all. The science at the time pointed in that direction. And so all of the policies were created to address that finding. Ngayon, di ba, nung sinasabi natin, ang science nagbabago, what we think is the truth right now might be incomplete and then later on we will find out different things. But we have to address the situation as it happens. So we make policy based on the existing science. So that includes the importation policies and all of that came out of the pandemic. May nakatanong na ba about sa reaction ni Elon Musk sa WEF? Bakit kaya si PBBM lang ang taga-ASEAN ang naka-attend sa WEF? Hindi ko po nakita yung kay Elon Musk. Pakilagay na lang dito. Sabi ni Carlos Miguel, 18. Salamat dahil kahit anong tanong, aside sa mga bayani natin, sina Rizal, etc. Meron din bang umaklas ng 1670? Opo, marami. Ang unang-unang most significant para sa atin, of course, there were the ones that were based on religion. Na yung mga, what we call the Antingero revolts. Meron, ang pinaka-significant dyan yung kay Diego Silang. So Diego Silang came long before the Katipunan and he was able to unite three diverse linguistic groups. Kasi dito siya sa taga Ilocos Norte siya, pero naisama niya even the non-Ilocano speaking groups into his rebellion, which was continued even by his wife. So yun ang significant dyan. That means that Diego Silang really was a good leader, very, how do you call this? Ahead of his time. Kasi dati, yung mga nagre-revolt were particular linguistic groups. Homogeneous groups yan. They all came from the same place, they all spoke the same language. Pero si Diego Silang, tatlong linguistic groups yan. Tatlong different communities na ipagpulong-pulong niya. And he was able to convince them all to revolt against the Spanish. So yes, there were previous revolts. And hindi po lahat ng napasukan ng mga Kastila. So of course we know in the Cordilleras they had a difficult time, and in the south, although nakapasok sila and they were able to establish the Spanish civil government, they were never really able to completely acculturate yung mga nakatira doon. Hi Kiwi! Malaki pong kinita nila Duque sa COVID, sabi ni Marcos Loyalis, dahil maraming nagkasakit nung panahon nila na hindi naman po COVID, tapos po madam ipapasok nila sa PhilHealth. Yes, in fact, we were reporting on the possible anomalies on that one. However, we have to wait for the cases to come out. Otherwise, at saka we have to have basis for what we're saying, otherwise it will be defamatory, di ba? Pero hi kay MJ Sanchez, sabi niya, Kong Chi Pachay. So, ganda yung mga tanong niyo today. Ano ba nakain niyo? Sabi ni Cecily, diba? Kasalanan ng mga traders yan, mga sakim sa pera sila. Imbes na tulungan ang magsasaka, sila ba ang magiging dahilan kung bakit nag-i-import kasi ang taas ng presyo nila sa palengke. Diba? Nakikita natin na nabubulokan na nga ng ibang mga ng ibang mga sibuyas tumutubo na, nakikita natin sa kalang nila nilalabas sa merkado at napapagpilian na sila. In other words, they're already being ignored. Hindi lahat po nabibili at yung iba pang tapon na or pang tanim na. So, yes, ganito yun eh. Ang mga traders, tumataya din sila. They'll hold the product para tumaas yung presyo, the market demand becomes great, and saka sila maglalabas para mataas ang nasisingil nila sa presyo. But that also comes with a risk, lalong-lalo na kung madaling nabubulok or posibleng mabulok yung produkto mo. You can hold on to it too long or you can price yourself out of the market, meaning masyado na mataas yung presyo mo, hindi na siya mabibili. So yun po yung balancing act that the traders also have to do. So in this case, medyo natalo na siguro sila kasi maraming hindi na bumili nung maabot na ng 700. Diba? Sabi ni Boljak, what is the basis for filing a case for impeachment? In case someone files betrayal of public trust to the president, what are the key requirements? Probable cause is first. Impeachment cases are largely political. And when we say they're political, it's because the people who are going to vote on it are political animals and they don't need to, and while they conduct the trial in accordance with certain rules, their decisions don't have to be based on those rules. So I think that if you're going to reduce it into elements, well, the it has to be one of the grounds that are provided in the Constitution. So if it's betrayal of public trust, then that's your grounds, and you have to have evidence sufficient to convince the congressman of impeachment. Remember, impeachment is what happens in Congress. The trial in the Senate is an impeachment trial, but uh, an official is impeached once probable cause is found in the Congress. Ay, Ma'am Annie, hi. Ay, sabi ni John Paul, dahu ang late nag-aya sa akin, hindi ako nakasama sa work trip. Enjoy your stay there. Hello, day trip lang to. And this is work. Oh, ay, kunwari, I'm working. Day trip. Ay, daw sabi niya, hindi ko nga pala nasabi. Oy, oo nga pala. Hindi, pwede ka pang sumama. Paakyat si Kits yata. Sabi ni Esther Tadeo, mataas pa ang presyo kaysa minimum wage daily. Sabi ni Ma'am Esther, oo, that is the irony here. Nabubulok yung mga binili, sabi ni Ceci Lu, kasi hinohoard nila at tinataasan ng presyo, kaya dapat kumikilos yung DA at DTI. Or at least dapat nararamdaman natin or nako-communicate sa atin. Kasi sometimes hindi lang natin nakikita yung action. Ayun yung problema, and that's why communications are important in our government because the people will perceive one thing but there's actually no fault on the part of government, hindi lang nasabi, hindi lang na-communicate. So, si B2A2N says, bakit po laging may hearing sa Senado? Ano ba talaga trabaho nila? Trabaho po nila yan. Kada hearing po ba nila may nasusolusyonan? Uh, Naku, nawala. Ayan, naman ba sila sa mga problema ang pinag-uusapan? Parang pasikat lang kasi. Kasi ang iniisip niyo ang Senado magsasolve ng problem. Well, yes, they do, but the solution is in terms of whether or not they're going to change the law, create a law, or repeal a law. Hindi po sila executors ng batas. Hindi po sila may findings of guilt or innocence. Kung may ebidensya, file nila dun sa ombudsman yung kaso. Anong ma-comment mo sa mga influencer nagpapakalat ng kontra sa gobyerno kahit mabuti na ginagawa ng PBBM pero binabanat pa rin na mali? Di mo ba pwede sabihan ng mga kilala mong influencer? Dear Carlos Miguel 18, the ability to criticize your government is actually protected by the Constitution under the guarantee of free speech. So, don't think that criticism is a bad thing. No, this is what balances things out. We create a government that's very, very powerful. And the only check to that is our ability to speak out and tell them when they're doing something wrong. The only time it becomes illegal to speak out is when you commit crimes. The crimes are such as, but not limited to, libel, inciting to sedition, inciting to terrorism, inciting to rebellion, uh, false publication. Yan. Yung mga yan, those are illegal. So, bakit ko pagsasabihan ang mga influencers when actually they're exercising the right to free speech? Now, this is what you call the free marketplace of ideas. The person who is the most persuasive, yun yung paniniwalaan. Doon pupunta yung agos ng public opinion. So it is actually a battle for public opinion. So hindi talaga pwede natin, we cannot ask people to shut up unless they're committing a crime. And it is not a crime to criticize government. We ask people, we tell people it's okay to criticize, but we want the criticism to be fair. Why? Because it doesn't help eh. Yeah. Nagkakaroon ng so much misunderstanding and so on when government keeps secrets from us. That's why there is the policy of transparency in government. Diba? May mga FOI tayo and so on. But you cannot ask people to shut up and you cannot ask people to stop criticizing. But in order to, if you think that they're saying something wrong, what you do is you produce the evidence or you produce the opinion counter to that. You counter ideas with other ideas. You counter misinformation with more information. You don't do it by shutting people up. That's not what the democracy is about, and that's not what we enshrined in the Constitution. In most constitutions around the world, that is a guarantee. Yung iba nga lang, if they have royalty, meron silang tinatawag na less majestic rules, laws, which means you cannot criticize the king. We have to go.
Oh yes, it's
Got it? Sige, I have to go. I have to get to work.
sundan niyo na ako.
Sige, sige. Okay. So, babalik tayo with more later. Kasi I'm out here. So, later on, pagkatapos ng meeting ko, we'll have part 2 ng Ask Anything Saturday. Comment on the way Senator Tulfo handled the Senate hearing mentioning NUTIL sa mga invited persons. Yung discipline sa loob po ng Kamara, maging Senado man yan o Kongreso, is policed by their colleagues. So we don't like it, and as a result of not liking it, we should be able to exercise express our opinion through the vote. Pero kung masyado na siyang magulo and unruly conduct, then it will be the Ethics Committee of the Senate that will sit. So yun po yung proseso dyan. Umaalis na ako sa magandang tanawin. Okay. Ingat din. Sabi ni Sir Francis, naalala ko tuloy yung Senate hearing kay Binay, mukhang mas malaki lang ginastos sa Senado kaysa sinasabing nakaw. Okay, on that point also, trabaho po talaga ng Senado at ng Kongreso mag-conduct ng mga hearings. Ang purpose ng hearing na yon ay in aid of legislation to determine whether or not the law has to be amended if these actions are a result of the laws or the lack of or laws that have to be amended. So we cannot stop them from conducting these hearings. These are ways of finding information to determine whether or not the laws are still the way they should be changed, or they should be added to. Okay, sige. Mamaya uli kasi it's Lakwacha weekend. So, magla-live ulit tayo mamaya. No, it's not. Yeah, we're working. Okay. Thank you for reminding me that we're working. Okay. Last, sabi ni Pia, can I file different argument like breach of contract if I lose to illegal dismissal to NLRC? Meron judicata ba yan pag NLRC? I think you can refile. Meron ba?
Ano bang gusto niya gawin?
Illegal dismissal,
Tapos?
NLRC. Pero may bago kang argumento. Kung naging final na yan, wala na. Too late na siya. So, you have to, if you use the lawyer, you have to go and ask your lawyer. Kasi ayoko rin kasi mag-i-issue tayo ng opinion na makakontra din sa abogado ninyo, and that's not fair. So, okay. Maraming salamat. We'll be back later on for Ask Anything Saturday. Malubak yung daan. So, mahihilo lang kayo if I continue this. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.